Let's get a BBS up and running on Meshtastic.
Stick around and we'll get right to it.
Real quick, before we get going, I've got to give a shout out to these guys. They're my latest patrons over on Patreon. If you'd like to help support the channel, I'll leave a link to Patreon down in the description below.
Hey, welcome back guys, Jason, KM4ACK. Today, we're going to take a look at setting up a Meshtastic BBS. To do that, we're going to use a Raspberry Pi Zero 2W and a basic little Heltec board. We'll connect this to the Pi with USB and install the service on the Raspberry Pi. Now, this Pi Zero may look a little thick. That's because I'm running an extra hat on here that gives me some extra USB ports, full-size USB ports, that just makes life a little bit easier for me. I'll leave some links down in the description below if you're interested in picking up something like this. But I chose the Raspberry Pi because it is absolutely perfect for this project. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump over to the computer and get going. All right, to get started here, I'm going to show you how to flash the Pi image to the SD card. If you already are good on that, then I'll leave a timestamp right here on the screen so you can jump to the installation portion of the BBS. For everybody else, what you want to do is navigate to raspberrypi.com. Once you get here, we're going to go ahead and click on the software option right here, and you will want to download the Raspberry Pi OS imager. Now, I'm going to use this, but I'm not going to install it through their method. I'm going to install it as a custom file. And the reason I like to do that is because it might not be the Pi OS that you want to install. You might want to install another version. So I'm going to show you the way of doing that. So once you get the imager installed, go ahead and scroll down to where you see manually install an operating system image, and then click on see all download options. Now, we're looking for Pi OS Lite, so we're going to scroll down, and this top option right here, Raspberry Pi OS, you'll see this one is with the desktop, this one is with the desktop and recommended software. The one we are looking for is Pi OS Lite. This one does not have a desktop environment, but that keeps our build super light. This one, as of the time of this recording, it was released on May the 13th. So go ahead and click the download here and give that a couple of minutes to download. Once it's downloaded, go ahead and open up Pi Imager, and we're going to choose a device first. Now, in my case, I'm using a Pi Zero 2W. Next, we need to choose the OS. Now, here's where we've got a couple of options. You could choose to install one of these. Instead, I'm going to use the custom option. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to the very bottom and say use custom. At this point, you just want to select your image that you just downloaded. I'm going to go ahead and click open on that. And then we need to choose our storage device. So I'll click choose storage. Make sure you get the right storage device here. This is a SD card that's 32 gigs, so 31.9 sounds correct. Let's go ahead and click next, and it's going to ask you if you would like to optimize these settings. Let's go ahead and say yes. We want to edit these settings before we write them to the card. Once you click in here, you can go ahead and set a name for your BBS, or for the Raspberry Pi that's going to run your BBS, rather. And then you can give it a username. It's easiest in this case if you leave the username set to Pi. And that's what I would recommend, because that's going to save us having to change things inside the BBS software to work correctly. So leave this set to Pi, give it whichever password you want. Then if you want to go ahead and configure this to connect to your wireless network at home, you can go ahead and enter the SSID and the password right here. We want to select the country that we're in and our time zone. Once we've got this, let's hit save, and then click yes here to apply these custom settings to your image. It's going to give you one more warning telling you that everything on this card will be erased, and ask you if you want to continue, and let's just click yes. Now, depending on your system, I'm on a Mac while I'm burning this image. You may need to input your password for this. So I'll just go ahead and do that right now and click OK. I can't remember if that happens on a Windows system or not, but it definitely happens on a Mac, and I'm pretty sure that's going to happen on Linux as well. Assuming everything goes correctly, you should get this Write Successful dialog box letting you know that everything went as you expected. Now we can drop that SD card in our Pi, connect it to a screen and keyboard, and go ahead and boot it up. Or you can SSH into it, which is the method that I'm going to be using this morning. Either way works perfect. All right, to get started, I'm already SSH'd into the Mesh BBS basic box that I've already built. Remember, this is running on Raspberry Pi OS Lite, which means the Lite means that there is no desktop environment. We're only working with command line. So even if you boot up to the Raspberry Pi itself, you would just be met with a terminal window. That's the best approach to this because it keeps this the lightest build that we possibly can have. And that's always a good thing. Never use more than you need. Now, let's take a look. We're going to be working from this GitHub page right here, and I will leave a link to this address down in the description below. Let's go ahead and start scrolling down though, and let's take a look at our first set of instructions right here. Now, I have already run both the update and the upgrade. Those can take a few minutes, so I wanted to do that before we got the cameras rolling. So the next thing we're going to do is just go ahead and install Git. So I'll copy that command, and we're just going to paste that into the terminal window right here. We'll give it just a second. Now, I didn't give it the -y option, so it's going to ask me, do we really want to install this? Let's go ahead and tell it yes. While that's installing, let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of our directions. So the next thing we're going to want to do is clone this repository to the Raspberry Pi. And for the most part, these directions all worked for me without any issue. There was one big exception though, and we'll cover that in just a minute. Now, this first command right here just tells the Pi to return to the root directory. It won't hurt anything if you run that. Since I know that I'm in the root directory, I'm just going to go ahead and be looking at this git clone command right here next. So we're finished there. We'll clear that screen and we'll tell it to go ahead and get that code from the GitHub repository, or clone that code. All right, so now if we run the ls command, you'll see that we have a new directory right here. We need to go ahead and move into that with cd space tc2-bbs-mesh. And let's take a look at the next set of directions here. We're going to be creating a virtual environment for Python. That's what this code right here does. So let's go ahead and paste that into our terminal and go ahead and hit return. Now, this does take a couple of minutes on the first run here to set everything up. But as soon as it gets set up, we are super close to actually starting to configure the BBS. All right, so now that we've got that virtual environment created, the next thing we need to do, we're on Linux this morning. If you're on Windows, you would run this command here, but we're just going to run this source command. Now, the source command, keep in mind when you're restarting this in the future, this source command only works once you're inside of the TC2-BBS mesh directory. Let's go ahead and paste that in. Now, you'll know that you're in your virtual environment if you see this right over here in front of your prompt here. So, let me show you guys something else real quick. If you ever want to come out of your Python virtual environment, you just want to hit deactivate. Or type in deactivate. So you'll see if I type this in, now I have dropped out of my virtual environment because that is not in front of this line right here. So just a little extra tip for you right there. So I'm going to go ahead and run this command again so that I'm back inside my virtual environment. Let's go ahead and clear that screen out, and let's take a look at the next set of directions. So this is what this pip command right here is what's actually going to install everything we need. And I hit a wrong key right there. Forgot I was working in the browser instead of the terminal. So I just want to copy that, and we're going to paste that in right here to our terminal window. Again, this is going to take a couple of minutes, so give it time to do its thing, and once it gets finished, then I believe we are absolutely ready to start configuring the BBS. We're almost to the finish line, guys. All right, so that only takes, I guess, about 2 minutes to get done. Let's go ahead and clear that out, and let's take a look at our next step in the directions. So the next thing we want to do is move the example config file over to the actual config file. So I'm going to copy that line of code right there, and still inside this TC2 BBS mesh directory, let's go ahead and paste in that command. And that should have copied over that config file. So now if we run an ls command right here, you will see this config.ini file. That's the next file that we're going to be after. And you can go through here and look at some of his examples. I'm going to help you guys walk through that config file though. Now, I typically will use nano, which is a text editor for the terminal. So I'm just going to run nano space config.ini. Let's go ahead and press return, and let's take a look at exactly what we've got going on right through here. Anything you see that starts with a pound sign or a hash sign, if you prefer, is just comments. So we're really not looking for any of that information. What we're looking for is starting right here with the interface. Now, if you're only running one USB device, you're probably okay just leaving this type here set to serial. So type equals serial. However, I'm going to exit out of this by just pressing Control X, and I want to show you guys one more thing just in case you're running multiple USB devices. From the main command line, let's run ls space -l space /dev serial by -id. Now remember, I've got my Meshtastic node plugged into the Raspberry Pi using a USB cable. I'm going to go ahead and press return, and you'll see right here, this is our USB Silicon Labs UART bridge controller, and it is attached to TTY USB 0. That's the information we want to use to set in our config file. So I'm just going to copy that information, and now let's go back to editing that config file. So again, I'm going to run nano space config.ini. Let's go ahead and start scrolling down. I'm just using my arrow keys here to scroll down. I'm going to come right here to this port, and I am going to delete that pound sign from the beginning. We're going to leave the dev on there, but I'm just going to back up and paste in that TTY USB 0. And that should take care of letting the Raspberry Pi and this software know exactly where that Meshtastic node is located. Let's go ahead and scroll on down a little bit. In my case, I am not going to be syncing this node to any other nodes. If you were, the comms channel's got a good video on exactly how that works, and you would need to uncomment both of these lines here and put in the appropriate information right here for the other node that you want to sync with. Let's keep scrolling down a little bit, and you'll see allowed node IDs. So if you wanted to restrict access to your node, your BBS node, you could do that right here, and just putting the allowed nodes in right here. So you'd have to uncomment both of these lines and then put in the allowed nodes identifier right here. Let's keep scrolling on down. These are your menu items. So if you want to remove one of these menu items, you would do that right here on this line. This is your main menu, so your quick commands, your BBS, utilities, and exit. If you wanted to get rid of one of those, and in fact, I'm going to show you guys that here in just a second, you would take out one of these options right here. I'm going to keep scrolling down. And what I'm looking for now is this default BBS menu. I am not going to be connecting this to JSA call, so I'm going to remove the J option right here so that JSA call doesn't show up in my list. Let's see, get the cursor in the right spot. So there's the J. We're just going to take the J out. So let's back up one more, and I believe that should do it right there. Make sure you leave spaces in here between each of these, and they're separated with a comma. So now JSA call should not show up in our list when we go to the BBS menu. Let's scroll on down. Same thing again for the utilities. If you wanted to remove one of these, oh, and hopefully I won't forget, I'll show you guys how to edit the Fortunes tab if that's something you're interested in. But again, you can edit out any of those options that you don't want to see on the utilities menu. Now, JS8 call, we're not going to get into this morning, but you can sync this BBS with JS8 call. If you do that, you specify the groups that you want to look for, and then any data that is sent to one of the groups that you specify right here will be pulled into the JS8 call section of your BBS. Now, there's no transmit option, so you'll only be able to read those JS8 call messages. But again, I'm not interested in messing with JS8 call at this particular time, so I'm just going to leave all of this commented out. And that is the last part of the BBS configuration file. So I'm going to press Control and S to save that, and then Control and X to exit out of it. And at this point, let's go back and take a look at our directions real quick. This is all running through the config file, and right here is where he talks about running the server. Now, this is where I ran into a problem. This command did not work for me. I ended up getting some errors. So instead of running Python and server.py, I'm going to run Python 3 and server.py. So back over here, let's just go ahead and type that out. So Python 3 server.py. And let's go ahead and press return, and with any luck, our BBS should start. And there we go. Now, I've got my font blown up quite a bit here to make it easier to read in the video. This looks a little nicer if you reduce your font size. But you'll see that it is not configured to sync to any other nodes. If it was, you would see that node list right here in the brackets. Also notice that urgent board permissions is set to blank, so that means anyone can post to that urgent board. The next line here lets you know that the BBS is running on the serial interface, and that the JS8 call configuration is not found because we skipped that part, so it will skip setting up JS8 call. And that's it, guys. The BBS is up and running. Okay, so before we jump over to using the actual BBS service, I do want to show you guys, if you had to restart this from scratch once the system boots up, how to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of the BBS software by pressing Control-C, and then I'm going to run that deactivate command again. Let's get back to the home directory. Now, if you just booted up your Raspberry Pi, this is where you would be. You would be in the root directory of your Pi. So I'm just running the ls command, and you'll see the name of this directory again. So let's go ahead and move into that directory with cd space tc2-bbs-mesh. Once we get to here, we're going to have to activate our virtual environment again. We'll do that with source space venv / now notice there's no / before this venv, but let's put venv /bin / activate, and you'll notice we have dropped right back into our virtual environment. Now we can just do Python 3 server.py. Go ahead and press return, and that is going to restart our BBS system. So now you know how to do it in case you have to reboot your Raspberry Pi. All right, now we're not going to do a full walkthrough of the BBS, but I do want to show you guys the very basics of it. From my node list, I see the KM4ACK BBS, which is what I named the Meshtastic node itself. So I'm just going to type on the short name BBS, and I'm going to say direct message. It's going to bring it up so that I can send it a message, and the first thing I'm going to send it is just a question mark. And if everything goes correctly, it should respond with a list of commands, as you see right there. Let me turn off the chime on that phone real quick, because that'll get annoying pretty quickly. Okay, so here's our first list of commands. So if we just type Q right here, you'll get back a list of quick commands that you can use. And then if you type B right here, let's see, let's scroll back up a little bit. If we type B, we're going to go into the BBS section of the menu. So let's go ahead and send it that B to get into the BBS section of the unit. And you'll see right here that we've got 3 new options, either mail, bulletins, or channel directory. You'll notice we do not see JSA call right here because we did not configure that in the configuration file. And we even went as far as to remove the JS8 call option from this section of the menu. So if you wanted to send a mail, you're just going to type an M right here, and the system is going to walk you through actually sending a message. So it's asking you now, well, what would you like to do with mail? Either read, send, or exit. And you can continue to go right down that rabbit hole to send or read a message. If you decide to send one, it's going to ask you who you want to send it to. It's going to ask you for the subject, and then it's going to ask you for the body of the message. Now, I will actually leave a link to exactly how to use this down in the description below. The Comms Channel, who wrote this software, has already done a fabulous walkthrough, and there's no sense in me repeating all of his instructions. I just wanted to try to help you guys get this system up and running, so if you're playing with Meshtastic in your area, you'll now know how to put another service on Meshtastic. If you found today's information helpful, be sure to give us a thumbs up before you head off. We will see you guys on the next one. Until then, 7-3.